Welcome to the ICU podcast, where we explore the vestibular experience through conversations between patients and the health professionals who care for them.
During this podcast, we invite patients to share their stories and healthcare professionals to ask questions so they are equipped to better care for and truly see the invisible challenges faced by their patients. I'm Kimberly Warner.
And I'm Cynthia Ryan, and we are your hosts on this journey of discovery. Wow, that was annoying. Oh my God. Most of you have probably heard a high-pitched whining noise in your head at least once. It comes and then it goes, and you wonder, where did that come from? But you don't worry about it because it's temporary. However, for some people, that ringing or hissing or whistling or buzzing or clicking sound is constant. That noise that isn't a noise is called tinnitus or tinnitus, and it's generally caused by damage to the auditory system. So today we're going to learn about tinnitus or tinnitus. We'll have to have a conversation about which one everybody uses and how it affects the lives of those who live with it 24/7. So I am going to start by introducing one of our guests, Christina Shields. Dr. Shields is an assistant clinical professor in the Department of Hearing and Speech Sciences at the University of Maryland in College Park. She received a bachelor's degree in Hearing and Speech Sciences, which I have to really slow down to pronounce because it doesn't work well with my speech impediment, I guess, as well as her clinical doctorate in audiology from the University of Maryland. She completed her clinical fourth-year placement at the University of Maryland Medical Center in 2013. Her clinical background includes diagnostic audiometric testing, amplification for adult patients, that's hearing, vestibular assessment, that's balance, and tinnitus or hyperacusis evaluation. Hyperacusis being when sounds are really loud. Hyperacusis evaluation and management. She currently teaches undergraduate hearing and speech courses and supervises graduate students in the clinic. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Christina, and welcome, Steve, our other guest. I'm really excited to introduce Steve. Many of you already know of him from Life Rebalance Chronicles. Steve was diagnosed with Meniere's disease in 2013. He had been able to do little at that time but stay on his couch and manage his symptoms that included debilitating tinnitus and brain fog. But in 2020, Steve decided to get up, ride his bike across America to be the voice of a suffering silent minority and bring awareness to Meniere's disease. His difficult and grueling ride is chronicled in his memoir On the Vertigo, One Sick Man's Journey to Make a Difference. I have the book right on my bookshelf here, and I absolutely loved it. Laughed, cried, everything in between. Despite the horrendous nature of Meniere's disease and tinnitus, Steve tells his story with humor, grace, and heartfelt reflection. Thank you for being here with us, Steve. Let's just jump in. Some of you already know Steve's story, but Steve, can you tell us a little bit about your first experiences with tinnitus? And there's a lot of other symptoms that you deal with, but we're going to focus today on the tinnitus.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was real excited to be invited to do this because I think out of all the symptoms I deal with, tinnitus is probably the most annoying, and it's the most constant symptom I have to deal with day in and day out. So it's kind of the reason I never forget that I'm sick, because that's always there. And so whether I'm having a dizzy day or I'm feeling a little off with other symptoms, the tinnitus is a constant reminder that you're going to have to fight through today again. And it's day after day after day. And yeah, in 2013, I was diagnosed with Meniere's disease, but in 2012 is when I got tinnitus. And that was the very first symptom that showed up. And I had that for a year before I had any other symptoms for my other problems. So it was like the wake up call. And I was at a friend's birthday party, and, it wasn't super loud. We're all old. She was turning 40. I'm 56. So it wasn't a raging rage party. It was just, having some cocktails, listening to a little bit of music, and just chatting with really good friends. And halfway through the evening, just in a split second, it just sounded like a jet plane just flew right next to my head, and it just stayed there. And like, I looked around the room thinking, does everybody hear it? Everybody's still talking and chatting. And I'm looking around like, does nobody else hear this noise? This is like so loud. And in that split second, I got tinnitus and lost 70% of my hearing at that point, at that instant. And then now I'm down to losing 90%. So I'm slowly regressing in my hearing also. And the other thing that showed up, which we mentioned earlier, was the hypercosis in my right ear. But the tinnitus in my left ear has been a constant companion for over 10 years now. And it's changed my life dramatically. My quality of life has changed dramatically. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it's as soon as I open my eyes in the morning, the ringing's there. It's the ringing's there when the last thing I hear before I fall asleep is the ringing. So it's just a constant evil companion that just, the way I describe it to people so that they can kind of grasp it a little bit is, it's like someone tapping you on the arm, and it just never stops. And you just want to be like, well, you just stop it, and after a while, it's like Chinese water torture to where you start going insane. And it's just that constant, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. I'm here, listen to me. And the way that affects your life is drastic, because that right now, my tinnitus is so loud that I hear it at the same volume that I'm hearing you guys. So it's a 50-50 thing. So I'm having to concentrate through that noise. And with my tinnitus, most of the time it has different levels and different sounds, but most of the time it's like a low, they call it brown noise. Then there's a high white noise. And then right in the middle is 2 or 3 octaves of ringing that's like just like a whistle, so at any given time, I'll have 3 or 4 of those going on all at the same time. And if I really think about it, I can separate them into, like, okay, there's that, there's that, there's that, there's that. But I tried to not. I just kind of let it all hit me most of the time. I don't spend a lot of time trying to focus on it, because it does. There's nights I've been laying in bed and you feel like you're going insane, because you just can't get that person to stop tapping you. It's just like, if you would just stop for 5 seconds. And the other thing that's tough is I haven't heard silence in over 10 years.
Yeah.
And people take that for granted, because silence actually is a noise. Silence has a quality that helps your brain relax. There's solitude, there's meditation, there's things that you can do with silence that are very, very healthy for you. But I don't have that option. So I have to figure other ways to get through my days while all this is going on in my ear. So that's my story.
Wow. Steve, you remind me, when you said I can't turn it off, it reminded me of, in my car, when my husband and I are we're going for a hike. We're in the car for a couple of hours, and our fan sometimes it has this whining noise, and it's really annoying to me. And I said to my husband, "Do you hear that?" And he's like, "No," because he has tinnitus and he can't hear the whining. It just blends with his tinnitus. He doesn't hear it. And when it gets really bad, I just turn off the fan. But you can't turn off. You don't have a switch that you can do that with your tinnitus. And that's got to be so frustrating.
And it's really, it's hard to explain. It's odd, because I have this roar in my ear, and a lot of times it'll match something like the noise of a fan or something, to where I don't hear, a certain noise that's in my bedroom. Like if I turned on a a fan in my room, it might kind of equal out a little bit where that won't bother me because this is worse. So I just don't even really hear the fan. Yeah, if someone drops a fork in my sink 2 rooms away, that'll feel like a lightning bolt just hit me. So it's really hard to explain how tinnitus and the hypercosis work together, because I'll be in a room with my wife and I have to keep saying, say that again, huh? What? But then I'll hear something on the TV that's 2 rooms away and it's on really quiet, but I'll hear that totally clear.
Yeah.
And it's annoying because it's like you never feel like you're really present with a conversation because you're always hearing other things that are louder than what's going on right in your face. And it's bizarre. It's a bizarre feeling. You don't feel connected. You feel very disconnected from your surroundings. You feel disconnected when you're in a bar or a loud restaurant. If I go outside, I feel disconnected because a plane will fly over and I hear it, but I don't know. I can't tell what direction it is. Like yesterday, a helicopter flew by our neighborhood and I was sitting on our side yard. I heard it and I just lost. I have no ability to be like, oh, it's coming from the right or the left. It just kind of comes in my right ear and it just is It's not like I don't hear in stereo.
So
I hear
disorienting.
yeah, so it's disorienting, and it can be, and if it's a weird noise I don't understand, I'll kind of panic a little bit.
Yeah.
And like if I'm with my wife, I'll be like, "What was that noise?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just a dog barking." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I thought it was some right behind me." So it's just very disorienting, and it takes a lot of energy to be present and really focus through the tinnitus to be involved in a conversation, even as simple as this, where I'm in a quiet room. So it's a battle.
Yeah. So Christina, can you, now that we've heard what the experience is a little bit, can you tell us what tinnitus is and what causes it? I mean, why is why is Steve
Why
having
is
so
Steve
many
so messed up?
problems?
Cynthia, you already kind of defined tinnitus. So tinnitus is a sound that is perceived in the ears or our head when there's no external source. So tinnitus is generally associated with changes in the auditory system. So in Steve's case, right, there's a change in his inner ear. And that inner ear is filled with fluid, and that inner ear processes hearing and balance. So Meniere's is believed to be due to an overproduction or an underabsorption of this fluid. And so in general, there's too much fluid in this inner ear system. That means that there's a change in his auditory or hearing system. And so it's not uncommon to have hearing issues like fluctuations in hearing or tinnitus, and also balance problems as well. So I like to,
So Christina,
go ahead.
like, real quick, like, does the stuff I've heard kind of is it's kind of like my brain's defense mechanism against my ear being bad.
Yeah.
Like the noise isn't coming from in my ear. The noise is actually coming from my brain because it's saying your left ear is trying to attack your body. So we're going to put this wall of noise up. Is that fair?
So I like to call tinnitus as a health barometer, right? So I like to call tinnitus as, hey, it kind of tells your body that, or your brain, that something is happening. That might not be, and it could be a temporary change. It could be a permanent change. It could just mean just a change in general. So if your tinnitus increases in volume, it could mean maybe there's a flare up in your Meniere's, or maybe there's increased stress. So I like to call tinnitus a health barometer.
Okay.
So speaking of that, sorry, I'll just like I know Steve, you're a musician. My husband's a musician and also has tinnitus. So for someone like that, where you were talking about how Meniere's and tinnitus go together, how about we hear so many musicians who experience tinnitus and the associated hearing loss. Can you talk a little bit about that connection?
Yeah, my first concern when I went to my very, very first appointment with tinnitus, my first question was, did I do this to myself by playing loud music my whole life, driving heavy equipment? I've been in, when you're young and stupid, you think you're invincible. So I'm just like, well, maybe I made some decisions music wise or career choice wise that caused this. And the doctor, um, he looked and said my eardrum is fine, and he said there would be scar tissue on your eardrum if it was caused by music or something. So it was kind of a relief in one way, because I was like, okay, I didn't just totally screw myself up, so I don't have to take the blame for this and feel guilty about it yet. He's like, but it's never going to go away. And I was like, what? And I'm a musician, and I can't hear music anymore that sounds right at all, unless it's a song I really know well, and my brain can fill in the spots that my ears are missing. And so, like, if I listen to a song I've never heard of before, it's not enjoyable because my brain is trying to figure it out and it can't keep up with the song. So just a few months ago, I took 10 years off of playing music, and just a few months ago, I decided to try to tackle it again and started playing again. The way it affects me now, and this is why Huey Lewis had to cancel his last tour, why Ryan Adams had to call a stop to some of his tours and music and stuff, is because it's kind of like you're underwater. And the way I hear music would be like if you submerge yourself underwater and someone plays music above the water, so it kind of comes through as a whoosh whoosh, like you kind of know you're hearing music, but your brain isn't hearing it right because the tinnitus is fighting it, and my brain doesn't want to expend the energy, I guess, to really listen to it. And it's been a struggle. I played last night for an hour at a new club that opened down the street. And just 1 hour, I was completely exhausted. Like, it completely exhausted me because I have to think about what I'm playing. I have to think about what I'm hearing. I have to try and listen to the other guy who's playing. I have the noise from the bar, and it's like just being kicked over and over again. But I'm fighting through it because it's something I don't want to lose. But it's something that I'm still not fully enjoying like I used to.
Mm.
But I know it's healthy, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Steve,
Did that answer your question?
yeah, Cynthia, does that answer your question? Because I know your husband's curious
Oh,
too about that.
absolutely, absolutely. And also, no, I know you had a question, and I have something
Okay.
else.
Well, I just want to reflect. I mean, one of our questions is like, how is this affecting your everyday life, Steve? And you're doing a great job already of sharing how it's affecting your life. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see and hear that this is affecting every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
You've mentioned the hearing loss.
Yeah,
You've
it's not.
mentioned the how you don't have silence, and how that doesn't really allow your nervous system to relax, and it's hard to be present because it saps so much energy from you. Is there anything else, just on a practical level, how is this affecting your everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, the first I was in denial. When someone gets a chronic illness for life, I think I went straight to denial. Like, it's not that bad and it'll probably get better or go away eventually. But after 10 years, you realize this is the way I am. So I had to learn a lot of patience at first, and patience with myself, because I'm very hard on myself. I expect myself to be helping people. I expect myself to be a good friend and a good husband and a good father. And so I had to kind of lower those expectations a little bit and be like, you just need to figure out how to be patient with yourself, because if you can do that, then you can be effective with other people and have purpose for other people. I think the way I deal with it in everyday life is I have to be very deliberate on what I choose to do. If I'm going to play music tonight, then I know that for this afternoon, I really need to just rest a lot, because I know that the amount of it's going to pull out of me. So if I'm going to go in and have a discussion with my wife, I have to go in with purpose, and I have to go in thinking, okay, I need to go in and really be present as much as I can and be purposeful and do my best to listen, stay in the conversation. Because with the tinnitus, like I said earlier, I'm listening to it right now, and I'm trying to listen to you guys. So it's this tug of war that goes on. And so the things I would tell people is you just have to be very purposeful on the decisions on what you're going to do. I can't get up and work an 8-hour job, come home, you know, crank up the stereo, then go play in a bar till 2 in the morning. That's not my life anymore. And it was for years and years and years. Now my life is I get up and I'm like, can I unload the dishwasher today? And how do I balance my day so that I can get to the end of the day and not be completely wiped out and have something left? So I guess it's given me a lot of purpose because the brain fog is, I think a lot of my brain fog is not from Meniere's. I think a lot of it's from the tinnitus because listening to this and listening to you guys, it's hard for me to keep a train of thought. I can't multitask in my head. That's the basic. I mean, I can do one thing at a time. I can do one thought. I can do one train of thought at a time. I can do one task at a time, but I can't right now be thinking what I'm going to be doing next Tuesday. There's no room in here for that anymore. So I live a very simple, moment by moment, task by task, discussion by discussion. That's how I manage my days now. So that's what my life looks like. It's a lot of thinking how to slow down and pick my battles.
Wow.
Well, we're glad you're here with us today.
I am
I
too.
I think I told you guys my husband, he's had tinnitus for years and years, many, many years. He only recently went into an audiologist for an evaluation, and he was convinced when he went in that he did not have hearing loss. And when he came back, he's like, "Oh, I guess I have some hearing loss." Christina, can you tell us about how tinnitus is diagnosed and that connection with hearing loss?
Yeah, so tinnitus is typically diagnosed by a medical professional, whether it's a primary care, ear, nose, or throat doctor, or an audiologist. So first, the medical professionals, like your primary care or ENT, will rule out any medically treatable condition. So they take a look in your ears, they make sure they don't have wax in their ears, and if they do, they remove it. Then they can refer for a hearing test done by an audiologist. So we will put on headphones. The patient's going to press and release on the button every time they hear it. Yep, Steve knows. Repeating back some words. And then sometimes if you're referred for a tinnitus evaluation, we will measure the loudness and the pitch of your tinnitus as best we can. So there's a high correlation between tinnitus and hearing loss. That doesn't mean you have to have hearing loss to have tinnitus. But like we said earlier, right, tinnitus is likely due to a change in hearing. So that change can be anywhere along the auditory pathway.
Interesting. So if this sound is there all the time, I'm imagining that there are some techniques that people use, and I've even heard that there are like some apps now where you can try to like drown out the sound. Steve, are you using anything to try to mask or treat the tinnitus? I'm going to say tinnitus now. I was saying tinnitus, but I want to be cool like you guys. I want to say tinnitus right now. But I want to know, like, after you've been living this with for so long, so what are some of the things that you've done to try to mask this?
Well, I have a hearing aid in my left ear, and I don't think it really helps me hear better, but for some reason I feel more balanced with it. So I think it helps me. Like I feel naked without my hearing aid. I put it in right when I get out of bed, and I take it off right before I go to sleep because if it's not there, I notice a difference. Now, I don't think I hear better because it's in there, but it definitely kind of allows my brain to kind of think, okay, we've got things going on both sides. This side's not completely dead. And so that's what I think because it definitely does not help my hearing much. And it's always feeding back and stuff. There's two answers to that. During the day, in my hearing aid, I have an app on my phone, and I can pump in white noise, I can pump in brown noise, I can pump in. There's like 10 different options that are supposed to like help match the tinnitus so that your brain can kind of relax a little bit. And none of them have ever worked for me, and they actually make me dizzy.
Oh.
So I quit using those years and years ago, but I did experiment with a lot of that. So Like if I wanted to right now, I could put white noise in here, but it would start making me feel like I'm spinning. So I don't know if it's because I have Meniere also. So I don't know. It may work better for someone that just has tinnitus or hearing loss. But with my other health issues, I think it makes it worse. So I quit trying to mask the noise during the day. I just go through the day and just try to ignore it as best I can. Sometimes I can, but a lot of times I have to just live with it and whatever's outside here.
Interesting.
And then now at night, that's a different story because I can't lay in bed and just listen to this. Like I just can't. It's insanity. So the only way I can actually get to sleep anymore is I put an iPod in my right ear and I put music on, or I put a TV show on, or something that's right inside. So my wife's laying next to me, so I can't just like have a TV cranked up. So I do it all on my phone, and so I'll just like do something, and this is how I tell myself it works. That if I listen to music or listen to a TV show or a movie, I would listen to it until my brain is just so exhausted. It's just like I'm going to bed. I'm just turning off. So I just have to distract myself at night until my brain just gets so tired of listening to the 10th episode of Big Bang Theory in a matter of 3 hours that my brain just gives up. And I just know I have this feeling that I get now where it's just like, okay, my brain's giving up, so I can go to sleep now. But I have to distract it, or I just have to lay and listen to that noise, and it just sucks. So that's my coping during the day is just push through. My coping at night is just to distract with something in my right ear that'll give my brain something to think about.
Yeah. Wow.
It's probably totally unhealthy. I'm sure it's unhealthy to like just wear your brain out till it's done, but that's the way I live now.
I don't know. Let's hear from Christina on that. Maybe not.
So Steve is right. Hearing aids are typically the first and most common tinnitus treatment, because if you have hearing loss, you want to treat the underlying hearing loss, right? By bringing back
Mhm.
sounds that your hearing loss has been filtering out, we are giving back some real sound to listen to. So by giving you real
Mhm.
sound to listen to, we're reducing that internal tinnitus sound that you hear in your head. So hearing aids can have that white noise feature or that tinnitus feature that Steve has in his left hearing aid. And for him, that doesn't seem to be helpful. But for some patients, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Because again, that also reduces that tinnitus perception. We don't want to cover that sound because you can't learn to ignore a sound that you don't perceive, right? So what I do is habituation, right, with sound therapy. Another thing that patients can report is also difficulty sleeping at night. So Steve reported wearing a earbud in his right ear, listening to some TV shows. He has a partner that doesn't like sound to be played. So there are other devices that can be used. One is called a sound pillow. Steve, have you heard of a sound pillow?
No, but
No.
tell me.
So it is a pillow that has little speakers embedded in it. So when you rest your head, that sound can be actually really soft because it's next to your better hearing ear. And it can come
Mhm.
with kind of like an iPod MP3 player that has tracks already uploaded to it. So if you get tired of the Big Bang Theory, you can listen to other sounds from
Never.
the pillow.
Yeah, what I'll do, Christina, real quick, what I'll do is like if I don't want the earbud in or I'm laying on my right side on my good ear, like the earbud gets sore. So I just unplug it and I'll take my phone and just slide it under my pillow and turn it really, really down so I can just hear it. And I love my Tempur-Pedic pillow because it's dense and heavy. Like if we go to a hotel and I lay on a pillow that has like down in it or cotton in it or whatever, and I lay on my good ear, I just hear the scratchiness. And so my Tempur-Pedic keeps me from having to, it's just a dead, thick pillow that doesn't make noise.
Yeah.
But I do slide my phone under it sometimes, so I kind of make my own sound pillow.
Awesome.
But I'll look into the news you're talking about.
That's awesome. Steve, there's also some like really soft headbands that also have speakers on it. I don't know if you're going to like them because I don't know how good the speakers are fidelity wise. I know you're a musician, so sometimes the speakers aren't as good, but you can also try using some soft headbands if that's helpful.
Christina, you mentioned sound therapy. Can you explain what that is? I'm not even sure. I think you use the word habituation too. Maybe they go together.
Yeah, so sound therapy is just using external sounds in the presence of this bothersome sound, right? Which is your tinnitus sound.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just using this external sound, whether it's white noise, pink noise, crickets, whatever. You can find any of these sounds on applications on your phone. And so we just use those sounds mostly in quiet settings because that's where tinnitus seems to be the most bothersome. And there's some more recommendations that you give out when you meet the patient and get a better idea of their needs.
How about, you're talking about sound therapy and habituation. What about, cognitive behavioral therapy or other types of counseling for changing your relationship to the noise? Habituation is essentially telling your brain that this is okay. This isn't a bad noise. And uh, yeah, is that something that you recommend, or any other? Steve, have you ever tried that?
No, not really. I think for me, and it's not really the auditory stuff I struggle with as much anymore. It's more the emotional stuff. It's the
Hmm.
feeling discouraged. At first I got really angry. The why me. I had to go through the whole grieving process, and so I have a couple apps that I will listen to sometimes to help the habitual. Like, but I don't know. It's just like I wake up the next day and it's still bad, and I just get discouraged. And I've had so many people ask me, "Well, how did you fix your tinnitus?" And I'm like, "Haven't," you know. So it's for me, it's more the frustration that I have to battle through, than it is like. And I don't know. Maybe I do need to retrain my brain to accept the fact that this is the way it is. But I think I just fight it. I think I'm just like I'm just going to take it head on and just deal with it and deal with it.
Yeah. I think everybody is different in their coping strategies. And
Mm.
Steve, I don't know if you're familiar. Do you know Glenn Schweitzer, who
Yeah.
wrote the book
Yeah.
Rewiring Tinnitus? So he
Hmm.
talks about, um, kind of, instead of ignoring his tinnitus, diving into it and kind of embracing it. That's what works for him. I'm sure it's different for everyone, but I think that, um, that having someone to talk to helps you figure out what works for you. That's, I'm talking about counseling.
I think I can
Yeah,
relate to that. I'm just going to say, I think I can relate to that with the dizziness for me, and maybe how Glenn expressed this as well, where my fighting it for so many years was jacking up my nervous system because I was constantly a little bit in this fight or flight. So for me, when I finally just said, okay, this is here to stay. Let's just try to coexist with it. My nervous system finally calmed down. And that was very, very helpful. I don't think it's the solution for everybody. Steve, I know you're a fighter. You've got that warrior spirit, which I think might be the right approach for you too.
yeah. I think it's really important for me to surround myself with people that try to understand. They may not know exactly what I'm hearing, and they may not know how annoying it is, but at least like my wife is willing to give me the benefit of the doubt and be like, okay, I've asked you the same question 5 times and you're still saying, huh, and she'll give me that freedom, where if I'm in a public meeting, someone I've never met before, then I really battle, battle to concentrate on that conversation. But yeah, one of my best coping skills is just being able to be in the room with people that get me, and allow me to just be this way. And all my close friends, my entire family, whenever we go anywhere, they always walk on my right side wherever we go. They just know automatically that just walk on Steve's right side, sit on Steve's right side. When we go to a restaurant, they let me pick the chair that I think I can sit and hear the whole table the best. So I have very accommodating people around me, and that's really helps me a lot. And being a musician, the first thing I did was break out my bass to find out what this tone was, and it's a B flat most of the time. So like I've narrowed it down to that's the tinning noise that just is a constant. It's a B flat. So if you're a musician, you can actually figure out what note you're hearing.
Yeah, that's
Just a
super
side
cool.
note.
To circle back to Cynthia's question about cognitive behavioral therapy. So, cognitive behavioral therapy is a form of counseling that helps address that emotional distress that can accompany tinnitus. So, it's a type of problems focused and action oriented intervention that is done by a mental health specialist. So, that's not done by an audiologist, but I do refer. I do refer patients for cognitive behavioral therapy if I feel like there's a really strong emotional component.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Well,
I
definitely need
imagine that,
counseling. I
yeah,
definitely
I
need
imagine that's very common, actually, the emotional component,
yeah.
and especially for certain people.
Yeah. Steve, when you described initially the pulling, the nagging, and someone tapping on you constantly, I just recently interviewed a young gentleman with schizophrenia, and he has three voices that are constantly there. And it just dawned on me that there is a real parallel here. Because when he was even
Yeah.
talking to me, he's learned to mouth read because he needs to
Yeah.
know that the voices he's hearing are, this is my voice, and then these are the three voices that are going on in his head. And it's like you said, it's constantly there and really, really draining to have that, to try to filter that out. So, I don't think people are aware of how distressing tinnitus can be. We think we associate with that with schizophrenia, like, oh, I'm so sorry you hear all those voices. Well, this is a version of
Yeah.
that obnoxious, incessant noise.
Mhm.
So many people have tinnitus. I don't know, Christina, if you know any of the statistics on that, but I know it's not uncommon, and yet there's no, I'm using air quotes here, cure for it. Obviously, there's a lot of research going on. Christina, can you tell us about some of this research, and maybe why you think, for something as relatively common as tinnitus, why haven't they come up with better treatments than, noise therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy? Why can't we fix this thing?
I think the reason why we can is because we can't find the exact source, right? The brain, from our ears to our brain, it's really complex. And we just can't find that exact place in which tinnitus happens. I mean, tinnitus can be a cause of so many different things, right? Hearing loss, it can be actually due to medications, vascular problems, can be a result of head or neck injury, and the list goes on. But there is some hope. There's actually a new tinnitus device that was just FDA approved earlier this year. It's called Meniere by Neuromod, and it actually uses bimodal neuromodulation. I know it's a mouthful. So it basically uses auditory signals and a somatosensory signal as well. So these patients listen to some tones, but they also have small electrical shocks to the tongue, activating another system, which is your somatosensory system. And so it's believed by pairing these two, we're driving plasticity or changes in the brain.
Wow.
And so this company has done very large human studies, and they found that majority of their patients reported a reduction in tinnitus severity. And so this is really exciting because this is kind of the first time a device like this has been approved in the United States.
Wow.
That is pretty awesome, and I think it's a device that I've heard about for a long time. Research takes years, and then, going from the research process to the commercialization process and getting FDA approval is a whole 'nother thing. Um, when my husband went to an audiologist recently, she said, to treat his tinnitus, it would probably take a year or two, and he would probably receive about maybe 30% improvement. What, in terms of, treatment, what can people expect? How long does it take for different types of treatment, and can people expect it to get all the way better, or maybe just reducing the intensity or frequency of the tinnitus?
So I never really like to give timelines because everybody is different. Sometimes tinnitus habituation, right, being able to ignore the tinnitus, just like the fridge in the background, takes a lot of time. And sometimes it is harder to do when that tinnitus is associated with a really stressful event, right? So, an accident, diagnosis of a disease, right, Steve, that impacts your quality of life. And so
Mhm.
having this set timeline can actually hinder the patient because now they expect it to come. And then when it doesn't, it can be a really stressful event. So I like to say, you know what, it takes some time. I like to educate my patient about tinnitus and set appropriate expectations. And then I try to answer as many questions as I can to the best of my ability. And if I can't answer it, then I try to refer to somebody that who can answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so much, man. I mean, I feel your pain, Steve. And I think I've even read stories where some people get to these places where it's unbearable. I don't even know if it's true, but didn't Van Gogh, some say that Van Gogh cut his ear off because he
Yeah.
had tinnitus. So what
Mhm.
would you
That's a
say?
theory.
Is that right? Um,
Well, I mean, you can't really be sure, but when they went back and reread his journals and letters to his girlfriend, they're thinking that he was describing a Meniere's disease, tinnitus type issues.
yeah.
So I mean, there's no way to know for sure without talking to
Yeah.
him. But that's a lot of people do speculate that. I've told people that before, but I don't tell them that it's 100% positive. But everything aims towards that,
Yeah.
to the tinnitus.
Well, what would you say to someone who is to that point of feeling like it's so unbearable that they want to cut their ear off? I mean,
Oh, I've been there.
yeah, what would
I've
you
been
say to
there.
them?
I've
I'm sure
literally
you've got
thought
some
about
people listening
sticking
right
a
now
pencil.
that want to know. What would you say to them?
Um, I think first just recognizing that your life is going to be different. I think a lot of my earlier on years were the years where I wanted to jab a pencil in my ear, and just make it stop, and as I just came to accept the fact that my life is going to be different, then you can start handling that pressure or that insanity or the times where you're feeling like you're just like mentally going to lose it because this thing just will not leave you alone. So, I mean, patience, you have to step back and be very patient with yourself. You have to let yourself be sick. You have to give yourself freedom to not be okay. And hopefully surround yourself with people that let you feel that way and don't keep you expecting you to be what you were before, because you're never going to be the same, at least in a case that's as severe as mine. I could maybe cut my tinnitus down marginally with a lot of therapy and stuff, but it's still going to be it's a game changer.
Yeah.
So realizing that, accepting it, being patient with yourself, give yourself a chance to accept what life is like now, and then find out ways to continue to fight to be happy and fulfilled. I think that's like when I was at my worst, I was so sick I couldn't get out of bed for 2 years. So the tinnitus was just like really overwhelming. And then once I started getting back and picking up hobbies and painting and writing and doing my trips, I'm trying to just kind of do things that fit with who I am, but also can kind of take the place of some of that craziness where, when you're alone with yourself all day long, feeling crappy with this ringing in your ear, yeah, you're going to go insane and you're going to get really, really down on yourself and discouraged. So my suggestion is just, you know, with whatever you can do, try to fill that gap with something that does bring you some happiness or peace. Whether it's a hobby or a job that you enjoy or walking your dog. I walk my dog 2 times a day religiously because I can go out there and it's part of my routine that helps me feel like I can have a normal life.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
Steve, I really
Yeah,
like the way that you
acceptance.
said that it's taken you a long time and you're still not even there yet. So it is this
Yeah.
journey that each individual takes. And everybody is different and every coping strategy is different for each person. So I think I loved the way that you said that.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks.
Yeah, acceptance goes a long way, and I love also, Steve, that you've really made made it your passion to do something to help others. That gives purpose to your life and a meaning to what you're going through.
Yeah, and I think just going through what I've been through, it's easier for me to be compassionate with other people, whether they have tinnitus or any disability. MS. I have a good friend with the MS, and it's easy for us to just support each other. Or if I'm in public and someone's like, "Oh, I have tinnitus too," I don't just shove it off and just say, "Oh yeah, it sucks." I can listen to them and I can say, "Tell me, does it keep you up at night?" Like, let them tell their stories, because when people can tell their stories, it's very, very healing, I found.
Mhm.
And I discovered this a lot more once I started doing my bike trips and meeting new people every day and telling my story. But I actually spent more time asking them about their stories. Even if they were a farmer in Kansas and they plowed a field every day, I would ask them, "What's that like? Do you listen to music? Do you daydream? Do you get excited when like, I found that everybody has a story and everybody has a good story. I mean, even if it's a hard life, their story is so important to them. So if it's important to them, it needs to be important to us.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're listening to other people's stories, you can get out of your own head and not
Yeah.
get too caught up in your own story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing
Well, I was watching the blind. Go ahead.
I'm just saying you're doing a beautiful job with it all, Steve. I mean, it's tough. I can see it, I can feel it, and you're grabbing it with everything you've got. And I think you've changed lives by being willing to share the whole spectrum of what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And shout
Thank
out
you.
to your band, your new music,
Building
old
D.
music endeavor that you've resurrected. You guys, if anyone's listening and is in Colorado, go check out Steve and his band. What's it called? Mo and Steve?
Well, we're called Building D now.
Oh, you've changed names.
Because,
Building D.
yeah, Building D, because we both live in the same condo complex and we're in Building D. And my wife's just like, you know what a good band name for you guys would be? Building D.
I love it.
So it's just simple, and it doesn't box us into any genre. It could mean anything, and that's what we were going for, because we play everything from 70s pop to heavy metal to Madonna, Prince, you name it, Cyndi Lauper, all the way to Soundgarden. I mean, we play a little bit of everything, and we just learned some Supertramp, which I love. But yeah, it's Building D. And we have an Instagram. Just type in Building, 2 small dashes at the bottom D, and you can follow what we do. And we're posting videos and pictures of us and what we're doing. And yeah, we're getting noticed around our town, and we're starting to get noticed. So we're getting quite a few calls for gigs.
Oh,
So
Cool.
yeah,
so
Cool.
kind of cool. Last night we played on an actual stage with a sound system for the first time, instead of sitting in a coffee shop corner with our little PA, and it just blew my mind hearing the full sound of my bass again, and I couldn't stop smiling. It just felt like I was washed over with joy. and then it exhausted me and blew my ears up. But you pay a price. You pay a price. It's like going and getting a Big Mac. Every once in a while, I got to go get a Big Mac, and I know my ear's going to ring for 3 days worse than it did before. But hey, I'm willing to take that chance. I got to reward. My guilty pleasures still. I still got to go after them every once in a while.
Yeah, got to find that joy.
Steve.
Well, thanks
Yeah.
for sharing your story again, Steve. As always, it's always a pleasure. And Christina, thank you so much.
I love you guys to death, and it's been so great to be connected with you guys, and meeting you, Christina, has been really good.
Yeah,
This vestibular community is definitely a close one.
it really is. Yeah. And Christina, thank you for sharing your wisdom. This has just been really fascinating to me. I appreciate everything you shared, and including the new research. So, Steve, if you end up trying that out, let us know.
Yeah, and Christina, if you ever actually just come up with the full question on how to fix me, I'm first in line. Or if you want to use me as a guinea pig, I will fly to you wherever you are, and you can prod and poke me. You can give me whatever med you want. You can put me in a trance, hypnosis. I don't care. I'm here to, if you need me to be a test subject, FDA approved or not, go for it. I'm ready.
All right, all tinnitus researchers out there, we're putting it out there. Steve's your guinea pig.
I'm your guinea pig.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. And for other podcasts, you can check us out at vestibular.org. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to ICU this month.
We hope this conversation sparked new understanding of the vestibular journey. And for all of our patients out there, leaves you feeling just a little more heard and a little more seen. I see you.